Yeah. Okay, it's 6 o'clock. So we'll call this Waushara County Board of Supervisors regular board meeting to order. I'll start out with roll call. Okay, just everybody's here except for Supervisor Bonfiglio. Well, maybe
I'm on the
unless he's coming on. He's on a call?
Yep.
Okay, sounds good, Brandon. Thank you. Okay, let's all rise for a silent prayer and pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, you've all gotten an agenda. I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion.
Mr. Eckstein, second by Mr. Piaski. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, I'm looking for an approval of the minutes of the September 19th, 2023 monthly meeting. Mr. Peterson and second by Mr. Bossard. Is there any discussion on this, on the minutes? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, very good. Public comments, we have one person for public comments. That's Ruth Zowski. Yeah.
How about that, huh? I mean, I haven't talked to you guys in a long time, so I thought I'd just come take up 3 minutes of your time. No. So in your packet, there was a draft copy of the resolution for the next bonding issue that is on the agenda later tonight. Today, we got the finalized version from the bond attorneys. So that is on your desk in front of you, and it has some language that they were able to strike out. And it's in red, so I did print it in color for you about things that once that it was finalized, things that they were able to take out, knowing what they were going to be able to do. So I'm just asking that when you discuss it, that you make the differentiation between the draft one that was in your packet and the final one that's on your desk for approval. Look at not even 3 minutes.
Very good. Thanks, Ruth. Keep it short. Yeah. Okay, there's no unfinished business. We'll move into new business, reports and presentations. Medical Services Annual Report. Keith must have had something come up. He's not here this evening. So we'll move right into the 2024 proposed budget and 2024 through 28 capital improvements plan with our administrator, Melissa Pingle.
So there should be 2 documents on your desk up on the front. I didn't want to get them mixed in, so I put them up on the front so everyone knew what we're talking about. There's a lot of stuff up there today. So, but the budget is the most important thing. And so there's a presentation, and we'll go through that. And then there's also a sheet that looks like this. It's the capital improvement plan. It's the 5-year plan that we put together. So we do a resolution and approve the CIP plan through the budget process. It'll be included in your budget packet that you'll get either late next week or right the following week. And we'll go through that timeline. The CIP plan for really what we look at is that next year, that 2024. And with that new strategic plan committee, we'll be looking at the CIP a lot more frequently and a lot more in depth as we go forward. So I am looking forward to the CIP being sort of reviewed and revisited throughout the year, as opposed to where are we at right now and, you know, what fire do we put out. So that's in front of you, and there is the resolution approval will be tonight, or will be on next month on November 7th. And just a reminder, our budget hearing meeting, our November meeting is November 7th. So don't show up here on the 3rd Tuesday of the month because we won't be here. But we can send out a reminder, and it's on the bottom of your agenda. But if you go to your presentation here, and do I have the clicker? Okay. So the first few pages are, it's similar to what I presented last year. It goes through what we do for the budget. It's for your reading pleasure. It just is a nice outline of what we do and why we do it with the county budget. So we don't need to go into those first few pages. The next sheet talks about the timeline. These are our general timelines of when things happen. So we're doing budgets like basically beginning in April. And Sarah and I and Ruth and Michelle, we've talked about this, and we'll probably condense this a little bit next year, and kind of hone it in a little bit with moving into the new building. And we know kind of when our timelines are, and health insurance is one of the ones that kind of hold us up. And if we have union negotiations, that kind of holds us up because we don't know where we are. If we end up in a situation where we're going to have the same health insurance again, or a multiple year contract, we can move the budget a little bit easier, but this is just the general outline of timing. And then this slide 4 is the important dates. So these are the actual dates that are important to us. And so today is the October 7th. We do the presentation to you. We give you the information, and Sarah and Megan and Nicole put together all of those worksheets that came out in this packet. That all of those, all of departments are in that printout. And if you need a copy, I know some of you had it printed. I have a couple extras if anyone wants the actual print. So you get that piece, and then you get the overview today, and we'll get to that slide. So between October 18th and the 25th, it gives you guys a chance to review the document and let us know if you have any amendments or changes. On October 23rd, we are required to post in the paper the notice of budget, and that does an outline of when and what our budget's proposed to be. So we're obligated to get that out, and it's due the 23rd. So Sarah will prepare that. And then October 25th, we'd like to have any amendments if necessary, so that we would have those ready for the November 7th hearing. And then we have the public hearing on November 7th. With regard to employee benefits, that's really one of the most important things for our employees. It's very vital that we be very cautious when we do our benefits. In 2022, WEA Trust said they're no longer doing insurance, so we had to change. We had to go to Humana. We thought we could be with Humana for a while, and then Humana said we're not doing insurance anymore. So it's out to bid again. We budgeted conservatively, and we probably will come in at the under the amount that we had to budget. So that's a sigh of relief, because we were at 9 to 12%, and our first one that came back was a 10% increase. So the broker is looking at that and getting the pricing. We have another call this week, and as soon as we know that, we'll be able to make any updates that are necessary. But I believe how we budgeted with the wages is going to be enough, and we won't need to revisit that again to make any adjustments. On a positive note, this will be the third year in a row that all full-time employees will get at least a 2% COLA. And I know that's a big deal because the cost of living continues to go up, and I know that it's been a concern for employees. So all full-time employees should get a step increase this year, and will also get a 2% COLA. So I was very happy with that, considering the new building projects, the extra property insurance costs, the extra utilities with having multiple facilities running next year. So as proposed, that is where we are with wages. We did reclassifications throughout the year, and I do not believe we added any positions this year. So that's a very good positive, and we've done some restructuring. The capital buildings project. So this is a big driver of our costs. So we have EMS and the Poisippy project completed this year. EMS in Watoma should complete mid-November of this year. Highway Department target will be mid-February, and Government Center completion end of April and move in May. And we have most of that all set up for the moving company. So just to give you a timeline, we did that master plan, and with the master plan, we have to keep revisiting that plan to make sure that we continue to look at the needs of the county. So I put on here some of the future needs and assessments that we need to, or we are looking at: the buildings and ground storage, medical examiner, body cooler and workspace, the evidence garage and storage, cold storage for equipment. Vehicles can get parked inside. We're working on the repurposing of the highway department. And then the outlying county buildings also need to be reviewed: EMS, highway, the cell towers, and the fairgrounds need to continue to be in our purview. And then other items we have in that master plan, addition to the sheriff's office, our emergency operations center, parks department building, and parks facilities throughout the county. So just to give us a reminder to make sure we're keeping that when we're working on the CIP plan, we're giving enough money to those buildings that we don't have to rebuild them in 10 years. So when we worked on the 2024 budget, this is like a sticker shock. Our first initial budget, it came in at $3.2 million over the levy. And then we worked with all the departments on cutting costs or looking at how we were budgeting their revenues. Every single department, it was fantastic, came back and helped. No matter if it was streamlining processes, cutting this, moving this project to next year. We talked with Jeff from Huntington. We talked to our auditors about any ways we could change how we were doing things, like the audit that you allowed us to do this year in DHS. That will pay for itself into the future. EMS restructured, and DHS also restructured some so that we can bill more for their services and how we have their positions. So everybody, it takes like a little army to do a budget here. So working with everyone, we were able to bring that down to the application of the 1.4, the same amount as we had the year before, which we'll get to that slide next. So this is really the most, I would say this is the most telling or most important page in your packet. So this is showing 2024 and 2023, and where the costs are, where the allocations are, and how all the departments look to what they look like last year. So what really is driving our cost is the financing of the building, and the way it is structured and how the calculations are done. If you look at the bottom of your page, our mill rate is actually going to go down 23 cents from the year before. So our mill rate, and it's at the bottom, the 2023 mill rate last year was 591, and we're bringing it down to 567. So our equalized value increased 11%. So about $389,000 was our equalized value increase. And so that 11% this year. The year before that, we had that 17%. And so again, last year, our mill rate went down from the 6 point, I'll go to the next sheet, because I included the past 2 years budget in here, so you guys could see that same information at the bottom. So last year it was a 93-cent decrease at the bottom center of the page, what our mill rate went down. So going back to this page, the 2023 and the 2024 amounts. This is what is important when you're looking at the budgets, and if you have questions. We ended up about 6.53, the far right corner. That was our increase from the year before. in how we did our expenses and revenues. And that's pretty impressive considering our debt payments are in that calculation. Anybody have any questions?
I got a question.
Mhm.
So I know you're showing the levy going down 23 cents, but the actual tax to the taxpayer is going up. True?
The tax, so the equalized value, and this is the part that gets confusing because my answer is a lawyer answer. It depends. And remember last year when we had these questions come up and it was like these guys had like 11% increase on their actual tax bill. So, and then the next meeting we had the treasurer, real property or GIS and Sarah come. And what the bills look like, it depends on if there's a school referendum or they're paying for a school or the tech college or whatever. I don't know if their amount will go up, if their tax bill will go up. The mill rate of their taxes could very well go up if their house went up in value.
I guess I'm just looking at it as a whole. Last year, if I'm looking at this column right here, last year was the taxable levy was 23,001,942. Is that correct?
Are you on the 2023? Yes.
Right? So that's what we collected from the taxpayers.
The net tax levy is 21. It's that, if you're looking at the 23, it's the far right column. Net required from tax levy.
21,023.
Correct.
Okay, so this year it is 22,396.
Yep.
So we're actually collecting more from the taxpayer. I guess that was my question. Even though levy
Yes.
went down, we're collecting more from the taxpayers.
Correct.
Because the equalized values went up.
Correct.
Because of what?
Because the equalized values went up again. That's the reason. And that's what's causing most of the townships to have to do a
Yep.
reevaluation.
Right.
So, mhm. Yep.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Because
just-
I know last year it got confusing because it's like you're saying the mill rate's going down, but your bill goes up. And that can be very confusing. And plus then,
That works.
Okay.
I wanted to just understand the fact. I just want to make sure I understood that we were actually collecting more from the taxpayers.
yes,
Mhm.
that's correct.
Because we also say at the same time, well, your mill rate's going down, but we're also collecting more, so.
Correct.
Okay.
And this year, I've worked with Stephanie from GIS, and as soon as she has the bills done, she's done a sampling from each, she's going to do a sampling from each township, and we will be able to give you each one of you, show you what a regular tax bill would be on like a high, a mid, and like vacant land, so that when you're asked in your townships, you're able to look at it ahead of time, because it does get confusing, and when constituents come to ask you, you want to understand it. And I mean, that's how I feel, like I want to understand it. So she's already got that set up for the last year, and now she'll have it for this year. And once she has that information, I will get that to you. So you will all be able to see your area. I mean, you can see all of them, but usually you want to know yours so you can answer for your constituents.
And this probably doesn't just reflect, or doesn't only reflect somebody's tax bill or valuation going up. It could be new tax too, new build, right?
Yep. Like the
Right.
schools, like Wild Rose, I think they had like a 9% on their schools.
I
Yeah.
meant new construction. That's going to bring in more tax dollars from new
Oh, yeah.
construction.
Right.
Yep.
It'd probably be good to bring out that presentation that the staff came up with last year, because that was such a good way to explain it,
Yep.
even at your town boards or whatever, if somebody asks, that was so thorough.
And that's why I asked Stephanie, and she has it already set up. So once we know, she'll be able to give that for each area and be able to actually, because I'm like a person, I want to look at it and say, it's because of these, because the library and EMS and then the school district, if I don't see it on paper, it's harder for me to explain. So I wanted to do it in a way that it was a lot more user friendly. So it'd be like a $250,000 house, and you remove the name, but what does this look like in that area?
Thank you.
Oh, that's okay. I lost it. So I put these other two in. Thank you. This is why I don't do paper. I only did paper because Barry was in here. So I put these in just because I think it's nice to be able to go back and look at this without pulling out your big budget book, and see a screenshot of what did last year look like, and then what did the year before look like. And that was sort of, for me, it's been helpful because I started here in 21. So, and then I also put some history in here of where does this equalized value come from? And I know I do send this out to you as soon as we have it, but having it right here in front of you and part of the package, I like to just give it to you so then you have it. And so I have this year's at that 11% down in the right, far right corner of what the change was. And then I put last year's in as well. That was a nicer one. It was 17%, but we'll take 11 because I believe Jeff is using 2% growth in his calculations. So 11 and 17 are better, but he's very conservative on it, which is good for being safe. This page and the following, these are the CIP documents, but I could not get them to look as nice as I had them when they printed. So just use the copies that are in front of you. And so I want to also give you a fund balance history of quote unquote returns. And this is a amount that is that we have not spent when we do our budgeting. So in 2018, when we did our budget, all said and done at the end of the year, we look at it in 2019, close everything out. We returned, quote unquote, returned about $1 million, about the same in 19. A little bit more in 20, and we were hitting into COVID in 2021. So these numbers went high because there was less going on, less services. Things were closed down a bit more, and people weren't going to conferences. You couldn't get equipment, those sorts of things. So that's why it spiked in 2021. But then now we're back down to the about $1 million. And so I think that's nice for you guys to see, because when we're applying money to the budget to make it work, we're getting closer to where we should be. We don't want to be overtaxing it at any point, and I think we're doing a good job of staying in our zone. And if there is a cost, like say if we get a high cost DHS client, that's gone really fast. So it may seem like a lot, but we can get in trouble if we get any more close than comfort for that. So any questions on returns?
I had a question on the previous sheet, the allocation of tax levy to departments. That first important one you're showing us.
Yep.
So I was just scrolling through this on the line item for non-department revenue expenses.
Yep.
Why is that? Everything else where it's showing a decrease, it's a negative percentage, and that one's still a positive percentage.
So the non-department revenue expense is, it's, some places call it a general services account. This is the department, and Ruth or Megan, if you want to jump in, this is the account that's used for our insurances, our revenue that comes from the state, our what else goes in there, like ARPA funding. So it's a non-departmental, because that fund doesn't belong to a department. It belongs to the county. Would you explain it any different? So it's like you'll run copiers and leases and whatnot through that account because it doesn't belong to a department. So with that one, you show the revenues, and then the fund balance applied, the 1.4 is to balance the budget, is to make us stay underneath the levy.
Okay, I was wondering why it's not a negative percentage when it's showing a decrease.
Well,
It's showing a positive 37%. Even though there's a decrease.
So the revenue amounts and the expenses is the 4.5. Is that what you're looking at, that column?
So at the last two columns, there's that negative 2,780 or 2,782,000. And then it shows a positive 37%.
Because the increase is a positive percent, the 37%.
Yeah. It's the only one in that whole column that's not tracking as a negative when there's a decrease.
Yeah, and I guess all I could say is the 37%, like the one above it's like 134%. But
Yeah, it's an
because
increase.
that is the expenses, so if you look at the first column, there's $4.5 million of revenue going into that account. So the other ones are not revenues. So that's why it's a negative. It's in paren because those are revenues. That 4.5% or 4.5 million, that's a revenue. Everything else in that column.
I got you. That makes sense.
So it's unique because it's the only one that is a positive number. And then we're applying balance to it. So it's a revenue of 5.9 million. So it's you have to do the percentages backwards.
All right.
Thank you, Megan. That triggered my math brain.
So the revenue went up 37% or the revenue went down 37%?
It's not truly revenue. It's the fund balance plus our revenue. So if you want to think about it that way, sure, but it's not actually taxes we're taxing on. It's fund balance that we have.
So the fund balance went up 37 or it went down 37%?
Neither. That is just this. That's what it's going up from the year before.
Oh, that's right. Oh, yeah.
Changing. Yep.
And I do know we've talked about this being a little bit having expenses net revenues is as opposed to just having expenses revenues and then a total and then is a bit confusing. I think this was inherited by Sarah, and with Tyler I would like to change it, and we just have to figure out the programming to do it because I would prefer to see what are the expenses, what are the revenues in different columns. Because the net isn't all that helpful. But if I was going to change the program, I think she might kill me. But I would also like to do that. And we can do it. It's just that the system hasn't been set up that way, and we will get it that way. It can be done. Right now, it would be very manual.
All right, thanks. Didn't mean to make you go back.
No, that's okay. Did you move it? Oh.
Now's the time to ask.
No, that's okay. And then the last screen I had is just because I had to throw color in here because I thought I was following Keith. This is just our net new construction, and I just think this is kind of neat to know. From 2018, we were at 0.83, and I like to see history on one page. We're up to 1.25, and I mean it's not crazy great, but I mean it's positive, and it means we're moving in a positive direction. And lastly, I just threw these in here because these are sort of the things that are on the horizon. We have some things that are just outstanding right now. We have the police union and the EMS union. We are close, thanks to Ruth, our negotiator. We're very close on our she can never leave ever, and we're gonna bring her back even if she does leave us. But yeah, we had those, and so we're going to be trying to do 2-year contracts at least, and that will be helpful for the upcoming years. We did do some changes this year with budgeting. I do not want to tax people more than we need to. And we were budgeting at one point 100% with 100% budget, worst case scenario. And then we're returning money and then we're not being able to bring our wages up. And so that creates this really bad problem, right? You're not spending money on your employees and then your employees are leaving because they're making more money, but you're not, looking at it in the standpoint of, are the cops ever 90%, 90 or 100% full? No, they have turnover. Big departments, DHS have turnover, highway. So we worked with them to get at 95, maybe 97% of their wages, which really helped us be able to do that COLA. And we didn't force it on them. We asked, and they everyone wants to have their employees make better dollars and not return that money and then lose good people to other places. And so I'm very happy with all of the departments. And then we had departments that are, like the register of deeds, she's on top of the legislation, letting us know how this will impact us, and like child support and EMS and the county clerk. Like, we have a lot of departments that are out there advocating for us. And that's been helpful, especially with shared revenue. And then I just wanted to add, some of the main drivers in budget increases is, of course, inflation. Like Debbie and Department of Aging, she's dealing with the cost of foods going up. Same with the sheriff's department and their food contracts, gas, fuel, equipment. I mean, ambulances doubled in price. They're at over $200,000. The new building, and then we just have some unknowns with insurance, which after today, I feel a little bit better about where we are. When I heard 10%, 10.5% last week, I was a little nervous, but I think we'll be okay with that. And then lastly, we'll be doing the strategic planning, and I think that'll be an interactive process, and I think departments will enjoy that, and I think that'll be good for the entire county. So if you have any changes, questions, amendments, we do need those to go to Megan and Sarah and myself by October 25th, so that we can make sure that we get that information to you. And I will share that all of the departments have their budgets. We've worked through all of these. We've had meetings. And so I think everyone is good as far as budget goes. I think we had to work with the sheriff and we adjusted their vehicles, but I've heard they're happy and we're gonna be good there. And speaking of vehicles, we explored that enterprise option and we thought it would work. I spent an enormous amount of time invested in it, and after working with the departments, it's just not the right way to go. I'm happy we did the exercise, but I feel like that ties our hands for far too long. Like Green Lake is like, now I'm stuck with all these, and you hit a year when you're in, say, COVID and you don't have the funds or you can't get the vehicles and you're stuck in leases. And like Debbie Pavla, man, she can make vehicles go forever. She's like, this is not this for us. So all departments agreed that it's not something we want to explore, but we tried. And we will continue on the way we are and buy and own our vehicles.
The positive thing from that too is it probably got all of our department heads to look at their vehicles in a different light, in seeing how the value of upkeep and stuff like that can really make a difference, because that was kind of how they were trying to sell it. So that's good for everybody.
It sounds really good. I'm not a lease girl either, but when all said and done, it's just not the best interest for us. So we said we tried.
Mm-hmm. So is there any other questions then from Melissa on the budget? So our assignment now, this next week, is to look this over, and if you want to make any changes, get it to Megan. Now we can make changes up till the November 7th. Is that correct?
So
when we vote on it.
So
but
I just want to give this budget put together. All the departments were very involved in, and all of the expenses, revenues, all work together. So if there is a proposed change, you need to tell us what you're going to change on the other end. So if you tell me I want X dollars to go to to Susie's department, then you have to tell me which department you're taking that money from. So it can't be done in a vacuum. And so all of these interplay. So you can't say, I want to add this to this department without telling me what department you want to take it from or where you want to take it from. So that's the only caveat I'd give. And then if we change that after she sends it out to the paper, we have to do an amendment to the paper. So
But then also, if
not
there's
easy
anything
to
you're,
change it, but
if there's anything you're confused on or, need to have clarified, make sure you get those questions out too, so we're able to answer them best as we can. So, okay. Nothing else? All right. Thank you, Melissa.
all right.
Okay, we'll move into part B, discussion possible motion action item. I is the county board supervisor compensation for 2024 through 2026 term. We do this every couple of years. We look at it. And at the exec, we did make not a motion, but we just brought up that might be the time to look at increasing those because of the cost of living and everything. I think the last time the county board had any increase was 2013, I believe. And I think you saw in your packet now it's at $50 for a meeting, $75 for the county board meeting, and then the other expenses. So I guess I would look to if anybody wants to make a motion. It was not presented in a motion fashion, but if you want to make that motion or make a motion, we will.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, motion by Bonfiglio. Is there a second to that motion?
Weren't you taking that from, well, I'll second the motion.
Okay.
Table.
Yeah, okay.
You said 50 to 75, wasn't it?
Yep. And in this meeting in the county board meeting go from 75 to 100. That's what we had.
I thought the regular meetings were going to, I thought we raised everything 25, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
50 to 75.
You get 50 right now.
Yes,
You get 50 right now, so you're gonna raise this meeting, your county board meeting to 100.
right,
And you're gonna raise the other meetings to
right.
75.
Mhm. That's what we had passed along as a,
I'm with you.
and that's the motion now on the floor and
I second.
in the second. Okay, is there any discussion on this?
I know.
Any discussion? Yes, Mr. Weedle.
Seems kind of funny. We're asking all departments to tighten their belt and
Mhm.
then we're gonna get a raise.
Yeah.
That don't make a lot of sense to me, but
Okay.
I'm just one person, so.
Right.
If you're doing it for the money, folks, we're doing it for the wrong reason.
Right.
It should be to
Absolutely.
serve the constituents that you represent,
Mhm.
not to see how many meetings we can go to, how much money we can get. And I mean, we tell them to cut their budget and tighten their belt, and then we're gonna raise ours, I don't know what the percentage is, but that much?
Mhm.
I can't vote for something like that.
Okay. Is there any other comments? It's, and the reason we looked at that is and when we talked in exec, is just because it hasn't been changed for several years.
I understand that, but
So I mean, it's not a money, it's just, we thought in fairness, and we looked at what other counties had been doing as well. But,
We were right in line with what other counties were doing.
mhm. Yep. So,
And the employees that work here are getting a raise. And they
yeah,
have
but
got,
they're here 8 hours a day. We're here for an hour,
I know,
maybe 2 hours for a committee meeting.
I know, but I'm just saying that they have been getting raises right.
Understand that. That's just my stand on it.
sure. And I appreciate that. That's what we wanted to get, Bob, is some discussion on it, because it's, so is there any other
Sure, I
discussion?
just wanted to reiterate what Pat said. We're not asking our employees to take wage cuts or to stay even with wages. And we are somewhat considered an employee. If it hasn't been looked at since 2013, it should be looked at. I agree.
And I think if you look at the overall thing, you're not going to get,
Right.
it's not really a
That's-
job
I
anyway.
looked at in 10 years. so.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe it was high in 2013 though. I guess what we're getting at, right, Bob?
Could have been, I don't know.
Is there any other discussion? Now's the time. If you have an opinion or just want to discuss it out, this is the place to talk about it. Yes, Mr.
Not
Eckstein.
running next year, but I think it's long overdue.
I don't think just because it's a responsibility
Mm-hmm.
and it's a big responsibility. And I think everybody understands that. And I think the employees will all understand that.
Mm-hmm.
So I would vote for it.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Okay. Seeing none, then we'll proceed to vote.
Stein votes aye.
Mr. Cap,
Aye.
Mr. Bonfiglio,
Yes.
Okay, in the motion passes. Very good. Thank you. Okay, the number 2 is opioid settlement proceeds request, the medication lock boxes.
So this one, I know it seems like it's a small request. It's only $2,100, but it's not one of our priority things. So that's our rule that I'll come back. On your desk today too, I also left you a copy of the benefits of medication lock boxes from one of our substance abuse prevention coordinators. And basically how this ties into the opioid funds is that a lot of the opioid addictions started out as addictions to prescription medications. So by having prescriptions locked up, then we're hoping that we'll be able to help prevent future opioid addictions. So that's what the request is to purchase these boxes to be able to give out in the community to make medications safer.
There.
How do they get the box? I mean, how
So-
do you determine that?
Well, they can come to the county and ask for them. Sometimes when we get like an APS referral, Adult Protective Services, for those of you who don't speak my initial language, we sometimes get reports about people either self-neglecting or other people taking advantage of them. And then we go out and we assess them and offer them assistance. And if one of the things that we see that they have is lots of medications lying around, we offer them a box. They've been given out at fax dinners before by the Prevention Council. They've been given out at schools if the schools find a need for some of them. Sometimes they have other community events. Sometimes people who are in like counseling for mental health or something, we might give them to them. So it's kind of, we know who has them and our ADRC knows who has the supply of them. And if we have somebody that we know needs them, then we do that. And sometimes we get presentations like at senior centers and things like that.
Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion to okay this request? Okay.
Make a motion. to
Motion by
approve.
motion by Mr. Bossard, second by Eckstein. Is there any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, we'll proceed to vote on this.
Yes.
Aye.
Thank you, Ruth.
Mr. Cap,
Okay, the request is accepted. Thank you. Okay, Part C, consideration possible action on the following resolutions and ordinances. Resolution number 17-10-23, and now this is the updated document, the resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of $42,500,000 general obligation refunding bonds, Series 2023B. Is there a motion? Motion to accept, I guess. Okay, but there's a motion by Mr. Eckstein. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Bossard. All right, very good. Is there any discussion?
Is Ruth able to give us layman's terms on this again?
No, yeah, you didn't.
Jeff can? All right.
He made the drive.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me here. Happy to answer the questions. I wanted to take you through a couple of pages just to show you where we are with actual rates now that we've been into the market. First of all, I certainly want to thank your staff Ruth and Sarah and Jesse did an outstanding job in terms of the rating process in our hour-long call with Standard and Poor's. You garnered on this and all your underlying debt, so all roughly 80 some $million, a AA minus stable rating. I'll get into the importance of that in a little bit in terms of how we marketed, what happened today. I think you all know that we've been in a volatile interest rate market for a period of months, probably close to a year. So trying to get people to commit to prices on certain bonds on one day can be somewhat nerve-wracking, if you will, because they're all expecting, I'll just wait till tomorrow to make my investment because rates are going to be higher. So that's kind of what we're dealing with this week. But be that as it is, as you know, we have $42.5 million in short-term notes that have been in place for about 7 months. We've been earning interest on those monies at in excess of 5 to 5.25%. We're probably going to end up through that construction period on our reinvestments of over $2 million that we certainly didn't expect to have when 2.5 years ago, roughly 2 years ago, we started with this project. So, you know, nothing's ever perfect. Rates went up, but reinvestment rates went up also. So we changed our methodology a bit. We got short-term monies and we got them working for us, and they're still working for us. But on December 1st, we're going to have to pay back that $42.5 million. And that's what this financing is going to do. It's going to pay that back, and it's going to take it out long-term. And as you can see, thank you, Megan, appreciate that. From the overhead, you'll see the use of funds. We see a net premium of a little over 2.2 million. We're going to be refunding principal and interest of $43,980,417. I'm happy to say we're not using any of our investment earnings to pay that down. Those investment earnings are still there for the county board to decide how they want to expend them, either for future debt service payments, or if you have some additional improvements as you go through your project, change orders, those kinds of things. It is your prerogative to decide if you want to use some of those monies to pay for any additional parts of the project. It's a good position to be in, I would say, having a finite amount that's been authorized and being able to generate some interest income.
Can I ask a question, Jeff? So
Yes.
what are we doing with that 2 million? What are we going to do with that 2 million? Is it just gonna?
Bart, that is going to be the county board's decision. I think if you get, you know, your construction manager projects, those types of things that come into you and say, okay, you might want to, I know with other communities, they have said, okay, we're going to improve our HVAC system because, you know, what was bid wasn't
I guess I was curious if someone's going to give us some options with it.
You will, yeah. And if nothing, if you're not expending them, Bart, then we're just going to use them to pay debt service down and we'll reduce
Or reinvest it.
our mill. Well, you get a
Right.
limited time. That's a good point. We have a limited time because of arbitrage regulations. Since we borrow at a tax exempt and we're actually, most of this is in treasuries, US treasuries. So we're making money off the feds and they don't like that for too long of a period of time. Nobody paying taxes on the money that they make. So that excellent question. So if you take a look at the scale, our payments are due on 6/1. They were marketed today at prices from a 379 out in a year 2043 of 478. All that said and done, and all of the expenses paid for ratings, underwriting, legal fees, underwriters council legal fees, that all generates into 4.73% for what we call a true interest cost. Does everyone see that on the bottom? Now, of course, it's a little higher than we expected 2.5 years ago, but the markets were a bit different. I want to also take you up to the top. You see there's a line in the uses of funds that says deposit to the debt service fund, $737,163. Everyone see that number? Now that number is also going to be delivered to the county at the closing. That is basically going to be used toward the first payment next year in June, which is part of our budget we're doing right now. Okay. So a month ago, Sarah and I chatted. She said, Jeff, what do you think the cost is going to be, what's my debt service number going to be for my budget? And will there be any additional monies to use to help pay down so we collect less from the property tax? But I'm going to use a question you had before because it was a great segue into the next sheet that we take a look at in terms of dollar amount and mill levy percentage. Okay. So we're going to use that 737, 163. That's going to go into your, on November 1st, into your funds. Jesse's going to reinvest that too. Okay. I estimate that over the next 7 months, even at 5 to 510, when we're above that, you're going to make another 30 grand on that. Okay. So that's 30,000 more that we're going to have that we don't have today. Any questions about the pricing, those numbers before we move on to the next sheet that you'll be familiar with? Was a spreadsheet of the debt service that I've shown you a few times. Yeah, that's fine. That's great. Thanks, Megan. This has been a sheet that we've looked at since day one when we were in committee and we're hashing over whether or not we ought to undertake these projects and how much it was going to cost us. So we've seen these numbers, well, we've seen similar numbers before, but we've seen this format. So now if you look at basically, let's go to the 140, the $1.40. Does anyone see that? That's our highest. I know if we kept recordings of all of my meetings, I said the first 2 years are going to be the toughest because it's all interest and the markets are going to control what that cost is going to be. So this next year, 2024, is going to be the highest year you're going to have in terms of the dollar per thousand levy. Now that's a gross number. And it's generated by that 5,587,596 number. Does everyone see that? That's generating that $1.40 based on our current equalized value TID out, because we don't get to collect the TID monies. The villages and the cities who have TIDs capture that. Okay. Now, I just told you we're going to have $700 and some thousand to use toward that payment. I don't have to tell you that not having to levy that is going to reduce that mill impact. In fact, not only are we going to have that money, but we're going to be required by IRS to invest this 42.5 plus the premium over the next month between the closing of November 1st and the payment date of December 1st. So that 1 month should generate for us almost 180 grand. Right? It's money we don't have right now, but we're going to have it. That also needs to be added to the 737 we just showed you to be used toward the first interest payment next year, which is part of that 5,587,596. Everyone follow me? If you look at the budget line item that your administrator so wonderfully explained tonight, there's a dollar amount in there of 1,125,000 and some change, which is going to be used to offset that number. So going back to what we said when we started this, and we got the new numbers when we had a 25% increase in our project, it was $1.50 for the first year. I lied to you. It's going to be less than $1.40. I'm happy to say it's gone in that direction based on where the market has gone. So now, Bart, I want to use your question because before it was great. When you were talking about the budget, you said, look, it's going down 20 some cents, but our taxes are going up. The real dollar amount you saw, if you look at the column total debt service, other than the year where we've got 30 million parked, every year is somewhat stable or decreasing. So if all of this ends up as a debt service levy, which I believe your debt service you should get as much of your debt service from the levy as you can, because as you know, the other constraints you have in terms of funding your operation, any raises you might talk about for the wonderful staff that you guys have, those things all impair your ability to raise money. And we're allowed without limit by state statutes to put every dollar. We don't have every dollar and cent on our debt service on our levy. I just told you we're going to have probably $1.1 million less because we're using other funds, but I get it. We want to keep the overall levy as low as we possibly can because protects the constituents. We still want to be able to provide the services. Is that making any sense? Again, I'm going to take you to the 8 number, the 858. That's not going to be there. Remember, we parked $30 million for 5 years in what is called a note anticipation note, because ultimately we want to pay for these buildings over the longest period of time that the state statutes allow. And that's 25 years only if you start with a note anticipation note. So we took 30 million of our total $89 million project and we parked it there. We have it. It's in being invested. We're using it to pay debt. But when it comes due in 5 years, it's going to basically be 4 additional years on this schedule at about $5 million. And you can see when we drop off, we're going to fill in those amounts. And right now, I'm going to tell you that by using that 25 total year payout, we're probably not going to ever have debt service on an annual basis for these projects above that 5.6 number that you're seeing. So the worst is going to be embedded right now after this financing is approved. Those are going to be locked in. And the only thing we're going to need to contend in the next few years is that basically 31 million that's sitting there that we're going to restructure. So, and that'll fit nicely into those longer years where you see it drops down to, under $1.80. I only use a 2% growth there. It doesn't matter. What I'm more concerned about is, and I think, again, I'm going to use Bart picking on you tonight, but that was a great segue because it is okay. The tax levy fluctuates in terms of a percentage because, of course, for a lot of reasons. And the administrator went over a lot of those reasons, but I used a 2% growth rate here. What I'm really trying to do is keep your raw dollar amount the same so that you can always say, oh yeah, we got $5.6 million in our budget for these buildings. Now, certainly $5.6 million 20 years from now isn't going to buy what it buys today. So some of the future constituents are going to get a bit of a break in terms of, those dollars, but it just will help in terms of your budgeting going forward. That's a lot of info to digest, but hopefully you get the idea of where we want it to go, and we're here. I mean, would I have liked the rate to be 3.76%? Of course. I'm just glad it wasn't 5.76 the way the markets have been trending. So, inflation being as it is, and as much as I don't like what the Fed reserve system has done over the last year and a half, it's kind of protected our long-term rates a bit for us anyway.
Good.
Questions?
Melissa, did you want to?
Did I answer questions? I didn't.
Melissa wants to make a clarification on something here.
Just wanted to make a clarification on, so the amounts that Jeff's talking about, we do invest that money, and the debt service total in the best sheet, the money sheet, it's built in here what he's sharing on offsetting that amount. So it's not extra money that we have available to spend. I just want to make sure that it's not we're reflecting the debt service and that extra funds in that comparison sheet within that first column. And then the other monies are invested and we aren't wanting to spend over the amount, the 89.5. We are looking at, paying that debt down. But so I just wanted to make sure, because Sarah did work with me at the end of the day with the nuances of those numbers to change that. And that's how we ended up at the 23 cents instead of we were at 19 cents going down. Then we made that adjustment and now it'll be 23 cents down. So I just wanted to, we did this last minute so we could have it in this document for you. So just wanted to make sure there's no extra money. She built it in here so it could go down just a teeny more. Does that make sense?
I apologize. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to
I've been a little long-winded, but I'd like to just take a couple minutes to explain to you what happened today. Actually, over the last number of days in terms of marketing the debt. Again, as you all know, things are very volatile. And for some on pins and needles the whole time because we've been waiting for October 17th to get some rates to lock into. So with the rating, we went out last week, Thursday, and let the market know, of course, that we thought there was a certain pricing to be had in this market. So our underwriters put together a scale, which we looked at there. It was a little bit different than this, but actually ended up being relatively close. And we got feedback from a number of different people, firms. Allstate Insurance was one of the big ones that we're looking at. What ended up happening was normally there's a company called Blackstone Investors that buys big lots of bonds. And they hadn't showed up and they weren't even part of the discussion, which was really kind of peculiar to our salespeople. And then yesterday, right? Yeah, Monday, Treasury market sold off again. So, I'm going, geez, let's get this thing in before we're losing more money because prices kept going lower and we want prices to go higher. We're selling bonds. We want to get the biggest price we can for you. And so this morning when my underwriter called me about 7:30, wasn't great news. And I told him he lives in Ohio. And I said, there's Google Maps. I'll find out where you live. And you don't want me coming to your house. So anyway, he said, let me call you back after 9 o'clock. I did actually say that to him. And he knew I was kidding, sort of kidding. Anyway, and we came back at 9 o'clock and new data had come out. And the market took it a little better than what they had early in the morning. And then we had Blackstone call in and say, we've approved the credit, because all of these big firms have to actually approve the credit. It moves up the chain of command. Like you go to the bank to get a loan, board of directors approves your credit. Okay, you can borrow up to this much money. They're the same way. So Blackstone came in and gave us an order for $40 million of it. We're selling 42.5. My mood changed in a real hurry, not necessarily because I wanted Blackstone to buy it, but Blackstone had set the tone for where the pricing was going to be. And so it gave us a basis to work against, to pair those prices up, those yields down. And we knocked off on the front end 5 basis points through the first 10 maturities and 7 and 8 basis points. Doesn't sound like a lot. We brought over $250,000 back to your side. So that price we were paying, the 7 something, had been down to under 5. And just with that change and that maneuver was $250,000 put back into the county's coffers, which ultimately we're going to use to offset the levy. So I found it to be quite interesting. The other thing is, not only once Blackstone moved in, there were 14 other buyers that jumped on. So it set the, the monkey see, monkey do kind of thing. So now we had 14 other people contending for your bonds. We're selling 42 million. We had total bids of over 210 million for your bonds. I knew you didn't want to sell 210 million, but there were people willing to buy that much cumulatively, which allowed us again to have a true, really good negotiating process for the pricing of your securities today. I just wanted to share that with you.
Good. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions for Jeff or Melissa? Before we vote on this, if you have any questions, make sure you ask.
Thank you very much.
You bet, Jeff. Thank you. Okay. So we have a motion and we have a second. And now this is on the updated document that Ruth gave us. So, so with that, then we'll proceed to vote.
Yes.
Mr. Eckstein?
Aye.
Mr. Cap?
Okay, and the resolution passes. Very good, thank you. Okay, number 2, resolution number 18-10-23, a resolution ordering the issuance of tax deeds on certain tax foreclosed property. You probably all saw those in your packet. There was quite a number of them there. So is there a motion to accept this resolution?
Motion approved.
Okay, motion by Bonfiglio. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Peterson. Any discussion on these? Okay, hearing none, go ahead and vote on it.
Yes.
Mr. Cap?
Yes.
Mr. Eckstein?
Aye. Okay, and the resolution passed. Very good. Thank you. All right, number 3, ordinance number 681, ordinance amending Washara County zoning maps pursuant to the authority granted in Chapter 58 Washara County Code Zone Change for Kevin Karpinski from the town of Bloomfield. Is there a motion to accept this? Motion by Mr. King, second by Mr. Bossard. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote on it.
Yes.
Mr. Cap,
Yes.
Okay, and the ordinance passes. Okay, and then ordinance number 682, an ordinance amending Chapter 46, Article 1 of Washara County Code. Is there a motion to accept this ordinance? Okay, motion by Mr. Eckstein. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Waddle. Is there any discussion? Does anyone want any explanation or anything? All right, very good. Hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote.
Yes.
Okay, and the ordinance passes. All right, with that, then we're up to number 9, the board suggestions for future agenda items. Is there anything anybody would like to have on a future agenda? Now, remember, the next meeting is November 7th, same time, just 2 weeks earlier. So make sure you get that in your phone or wherever you keep it. So,
Move to adjourn.
what's that? Yes, and October 25th as well. Make sure if you have any changes, get that to Megan. All right, and we did have a motion by Mr. Eckstein to adjourn. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Peterson. Very good. We are adjourned. Thank you. Oh, he did. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. I bet. Of all people. All people, he'd be the one who'd be here 2 hours early.
Batteries must be going bad. I let it.
So there's both these to do.
Roll half.
Okay. Mhm.
yeah, and after people accidentally sign in your lineup, let's see this.
Okay, sounds good. There.
Here, I'll put the chair so you can get by, Bob.
I've got it.
You got it? Okay. Do you want to print out copies? Have one more. Not one more?
Yeah. Thank you.
Now I have the face.